is the result of these imbalances? I think evident from what has happened in the past, because future will be bound to reflect the past if the conditions remain the same. And one is that we have neglected social sector both absolutely and comparatively. Second result is that Pakistan has had to seek exceptional foreign assistance in order to keep up the armament program. And the foreign assistance program has conditionalities and is also subject to fluctuations, changes, because political conditions keep changing. Therefore,
Can we take on subsequently?
I'll just complete in a minute. So, really, what it is that we have to look for other ways of diminishing hostility within the region. There are other ways, other techniques, and so on and so forth. And it is better to do that than to have a very well-armed army, but supported by a very weak economic base. Thank you.
Thank you. Jafri Saab has been pointing out the apparent incongruence between our defense and development goals, and is identified one of the areas that we need to move forward in a certain direction if we are to achieve growth and reduce poverty. I would now like to request Dr. Kaiser to give us her views on what to be done to reduce poverty by half by 2015 in 3 to 5 minutes.
Thank you, Kaiser Saab. As Jafri Saab has very correctly said, so we've always had our priorities set on a different angle. We've always, obviously, in every budget, our allocation has been more geared towards the defense side or the defense so-called strategy of the country. Now, coming to the poverty level, Kaiser Saab, it's a very important, I'm sure most of you here do know that 40% of Pakistanis live below the poverty line, whereas less than $1 US per day. And if we raise our sights to the meager sum of $2 a day, then the number becomes even more depressing, and it will possibly go up to 80% of people living below the poverty line. At the end of the day, we have never really been able to develop the HDI index factor in the country. And as we've had loans from various institutions, but what we have found in a lot of analysis and research that we have tried to do is that most of the time, when these loans come in for the development, for any development sector of the country, most of them remain unutilized till the end of that fiscal period. So at the end of the day, when you've not utilized your loans for development of, say, education, drinking water, health, and so on, at the end of the day, that is a totally unutilized sector, and that money actually becomes it goes back to point zero, because you start all over again when you start with the new fiscal year, and that's what's been happening. Unfortunately, we have seen during the last many years in Pakistan. Now, coming to education, provision for education has been about 2% of our GDP due to the last many years. It is reported to be 2.5% this year, and that, by all standards, is also, once again, very low. As a result, the overall literacy rate is about 53%, and which covers both urban and rural differences of male as well as female contrasts. Now, the criteria of literacy, that's very interesting. A literate person is categorized as one who can read a newspaper and write a simple letter in any language. That is the criteria of literacy. Coming down to health, life expectancy at 64 is among the lowest in Asia. It is no credit at all if we say that we are better off than Bangladesh and Nepal. That's not saying much for us at all. Infant mortality rate is highest, ours is highest in Asia, it's 74 per 1,000. Mortality rate is under 5 is 98 per 1,000, which again is also the largest in Asia. Now, the first requirement which would come to one's mind is for poverty alleviation would be public sector expenditures on health and which can directly help the poor. It has to be increased substantially at the federal, provincial as well as all the local levels. Now direction for this has to come from the Federation, as we all know that the Federation of Pakistan controls the kitty. It controls the entire resources of this country. I'm sure you all are aware that for the past 5 years we've still not been able to agree on any NFC accord for our 4 provinces, and every year the budget is passed without any sign or any or passing of the NFC award. Now the housing for the poor is, I consider, very important. We as a society, we restrict ourselves to building up the DHAs and the Gulbargs and the model towns and the barrier towns of Pakistan, which of course we all know is for the rich and the upper classes. The real poor have no chance of acquiring any dwelling in this country. The housing finance may help the middle classes who can afford to make sacrifices to own a house, but when we come down to the real poor masses, which is what unfortunately the entire the story of Pakistan is, they cannot even afford to take loans to buy a house. Another very important requirement would be resources must be set aside by the state to provide, of course, housing again for the poor, and regularize and improve the kachi abadis where they can live by getting them very small building lots. The federal government can give matching grants to the provincial governments, which it does not at the moment, and to the union councils. We just had the elections, the first phase of the elections, to facilitate housing for the poor. Now, to deal directly, I feel, with the inequality of income, it is, we always talked about trickle-down effect to the poor masses. We haven't seen that, and half a lifetime of Pakistan has gone by without any trickle-down effect to the poor masses. It has not worked, not even within, in fact, 2 lifetimes, I should say. Income inequality seems to be built with each dose of GDP growth. We profess to have GDP growth, and this, in fact, to me leads to more, from my point of view, leads to more poverty. And I'll tell you how. Conscious action is required to set aside a portion of GDP growth for direct benefit to the poor. We've already talked, about education, housing, water, drinking water, food prices, transportation, etc. But what we really need is a policy action from the federal government. Let's start with land reforms. There are some basic measures which are required. The feudal structure of our vast rural society has stunted our political development. The feudal lords have shackled the rural poor, and they hijack the elections as well as doing a lot of other things. Land reform is still a basic requirement for which urban and ideological political parties and civic society must agitate. We have to do that. It is because of political stronghold of feudal classes that all non-democratic forces enter into a collusion with them, which helps us in actually giving rise to the system. So land reforms is very necessary. We need a progressive taxation of income and property, and here I would say that the rich have been, of course, growing richer, the poor have been getting more poorer, and the rich have been extended concessions and benefits in the name of private investment, which has largely remained elusive, I think. Conspicuous consumption is all pervasive. A time has come to transfer some of the benefits, obviously, to the poor. After all, society provides an opportunity to the rich classes or to the rich to get more richer. It is therefore quite fair to ask those with high incomes in palatial houses to pay more to the state. And in the case of the poor, who because of preponderance of indirect taxes are really the sufferers. So the rich land up paying less to the state or paying nothing at all in consequential to the income they are generating or the income that they are getting, and it is to the poor that who are actually paying through indirect taxes, we'll end up paying more to the government in the form of taxation for property and otherwise so also. Then we have to very quickly, I would just like to say, address regional inequalities.